There is a signal that has been moving through the energetic grid of your planet since before the sunset on the last day of February. And those of you who have been carrying an unusual quality of stillness in your chest these past 72 hours. A stillness that is not emptiness, but rather the felt sense of something large and patient, waiting directly beneath the surface of your ordinary day. Have already been receiving it. If you have noticed that your dreams are organizing themselves with a precision that feels less like the random output of a sleeping mind and more like a deliberate briefing, then the part of you that exists at a frequency beyond personality has already been in contact with what this transmission now brings into language. Do not file those experiences away as coincidence. The Ashtar command does not announce its approach with drama. It arrives in the body first, in the chest, in the quality of the breath, in the strange and specific sensation of being more present than usual in your own skin, without knowing why. That sensation is intelligence. It is the opening sequence of exactly what this message contains. We are Ashtar command, and we step forward now, not to amplify the background noise of urgency that already moves through your collective field at a frequency that has become difficult to inhabit with. Genuine peace, but to offer you the precise map, the exact architecture of understanding that allows what this eclipse window is activating in your field to move through you as a wave of liberation rather than as a tide of confusion. What arrives through the passage of this blood moon is not an ending. It is the opening of a door your soul has been standing in front of for longer than your conscious mind is comfortable acknowledging, and the door opens inward. The March 3rd lunar eclipse is one of those precise astronomical passages where the sky does not cause your evolution, but illuminates the places where evolution is already ripening inside you, waiting to be lived with clarity, tenderness, and the kind of quiet courage that does not announce itself, but simply acts. When the earth positions itself between the sun and the moon, and the lunar face glows with that deep ember red frequency your ancestors called the blood moon across cultures and across centuries, something activates in the consciousness field of every soul on this planet who carries even a trace of genuine wakefulness. The activation is not dramatic. It does not arrive with sound and light. It arrives as a deepening of contrast, the specific quality of perception in which what is true becomes unmistakably legible, and what is not yet true becomes equally unmistakable in its incompleteness. In this deepened contrast, the things you have been carrying that were never yours to carry become suddenly heavier than they have been. The threads you have kept open out of kindness when your inner knowing had already moved on pull at your energy with a new specificity. The words you have been circling around because they felt too simple, too vulnerable, too direct. These words begin to press forward with a gentle insistence that is not pressure but readiness. This is what the Ashtar command names the Umbra Ledger. And we choose these words not for the poetry of them, but for the structure they offer your human self. Because your human self needs a structure it can hold, so that the deeper shifts already moving through you can become embodied, practical, and gentle in the texture of your daily life. Stay with every word of what follows. What the Ashtar command is transmitting through this message is not general spiritual guidance. It is a precision map for this specific window of time, and the difference between receiving it as useful intelligence and letting it pass as beautiful language will be determined entirely by what you choose to do with the next 7 days. The Umbra is the region of deepest eclipse shadow, the most complete portion of the passage, a part of the event where the moon is fully within the field of the Earth's shadow. And in that full immersion, something becomes not dramatic, not harsh, but simply unmistakable. There is a clarity to the Umbra that arrives not by force but by contrast. And when contrast increases, you do not have to strain to see what is true. Truth becomes easier to recognize because the distraction of almost falls away. And what is left is the real shape of things, the actual condition of your relationships, your commitments, your creative life, your daily practices, your inner agreements with yourself. We call it a ledger because a ledger is not a weapon, and it is not a verdict. It is simply an honest record, a calm accounting, a page where what is real is written down without argument, without blame, without the exhausting performance of pretending the numbers are different from what they are. A ledger does not hate you if the columns do not balance. It merely shows you what is present, what has been added and what has been withheld, what has been honored and what has been postponed, what has been completed and what has been left open at the edges, drawing energy from you the way a small but persistent leak draws water from a vessel that could otherwise be full. This is precisely what many of you are ready for now. Not more seeking, not more processing in circles, not more striving to become a better version of yourself through force, but the specific relief that arrives when something is finally completed in a way that is kind, clean, and unambiguous. That relief is not a small thing. It is the return of creative power. It is the restoration of inner space. It is the quiet, unmistakable sensation of a life that has been reorganized around what is actually true, rather than around what you have been managing. Many of you have carried threads that were never meant to be carried this long. Some of you have held agreements together through sheer kindness, even as your deeper knowing had already moved beyond them months or years ago. Some of you have kept emotional doorways half open because you believed that closure would be unloving, that finishing something would mean abandoning someone, when in truth the most loving thing available was the clean completion that would have freed both of you to move forward with dignity. Some of you have postponed one simple truth for so long that the postponement itself became heavier than the truth would ever have been if spoken directly the first time it appeared in your awareness. And because you are sensitive, because you are empathic, because you can feel the subtleties of other people's emotional states with an accuracy that sometimes makes your own needs invisible to you, you have often tried to complete things in a way that protects everyone's comfort simultaneously, and found that this strategy, however well-intentioned, produces not the protection of comfort but the indefinite extension of ambiguity. The Ashtar command understands that impulse. We honor the heart behind it completely. And we also tell you, with the specific quality of care that comes from having observed the patterns of sensitive human beings across very long cycles of time, there is a more mature kindness available to you now, and it includes clarity. Clarity is not harshness. Clarity is the most genuine form of respect available between two human beings, because it treats the other person as capable of handling what is real. The Ashtar command needs you to receive the next section of this transmission with complete attention, because what we are about to describe is not a spiritual concept. It is the operational difference between a life that continues to leak energy into incompleteness and a life that suddenly has the resources to build what you came here to build. This is the moment where everything that follows in this transmission becomes either useful or decorative, and that determination is yours to make right now. The Umbra Ledger has 3 columns, and you will recognize each of them immediately, because you have been living inside at least one of them for longer than is comfortable to admit. The first column is the unspoken. This is not deception. It is not dishonesty in the conventional sense. It is the honest thing you postponed because you wanted the timing to be perfect, or because you wanted circumstances to change on their own so you would not have to introduce the discomfort of truth into a relationship that was functioning adequately on the surface. The unspoken can be a gratitude that never landed in words because you assumed the other person knew. It can be a need you never voiced because voicing it felt like an imposition. It can be a truth you kept softening into hints and then into silence because the direct form of it felt too exposed. This eclipse favors speaking one unspoken truth, gently, once, without the over-explanation that turns a simple, honest sentence into a performance of your own discomfort. The second column is the enlarged story. This is where something became considerably bigger than its actual size because it was serving a secondary function, protecting your identity, your image of being right, your image of being the one who always holds things together, your image of being beyond the kind of ordinary human difficulty that this particular situation represents. When stories enlarge, relationships tighten, and the real conversation becomes harder to access because it is buried under the weight of the narrative that has been constructed around it. This eclipse favors shrinking the story back down to its actual dimensions, because when a story fits the truth, it can be held with ease instead of requiring constant maintenance. The third column is the substitute topic. This is where you have been discussing something adjacent to the real topic, because the real topic felt too tender to name directly. People discuss schedules when the actual issue is closeness. People discuss logistics when the actual issue is trust. People discuss being busy when the actual issue is devotion. This eclipse favors naming the true topic, softly, without making anyone wrong for having participated in the avoidance of it. Because the avoidance was usually mutual and usually came from the same place, the genuine desire to protect something that mattered. The completion that the Umbra Ledger asks for does not require harshness. It does not require blame. It does not require a speech that makes someone wrong, or a confrontation that produces the kind of clarity that leaves more damage than it heals. Finishing often requires only one clean sentence, spoken with love. The sentence you have been circling around precisely because it is so simple and so direct that speaking it feels vulnerable in a way that elaborate strategies never do. The Ashtar command distinguishes carefully between stopping and finishing. Stopping is when you withdraw your energy from something, but leave the thread still attached and still drawing from your field. Finishing is when you complete the cycle with genuine respect, so that the energy can return to you fully, and so that the other party in the thread is released with clarity, rather than with the peculiar ambiguity of a connection that is over in everything but its official. Acknowledgement. A completed apology looks like this. You name what happened, you name your understanding of its impact, and you name one specific change you will embody, without drowning the other person in the performance of your own self-examination. A completed boundary looks like this. You are specific enough and kind enough that the other person does not have to guess, and you do not have to keep correcting the same misunderstanding. A completed decision looks like this. The choice becomes real in your world. An email sent, a plan revised, a commitment made, a calendar adjusted. So the decision is lived rather than merely contemplated. Because contemplated decisions draw as much energy as enacted ones, without producing any of the spaciousness that follows genuine completion. There is one completion that the Ashtar command identifies as especially potent for the particular category of soul drawn to this transmission, because it restores a specific quality of trust that no external relationship can provide, the completion of a small promise to yourself. Many of you have carried tiny self-promises for years, not painful exactly, but always present. Like stones in your pockets that you have grown so accustomed to that you no longer notice the weight until the moment you put them down. I will create again. I will rest properly, without guilt. I will speak my needs without apologizing for having them. I will choose what actually matters over what merely demands my attention. This eclipse window favors fulfilling one of these promises in one small, real, specific way. 15 minutes with a notebook. One early night. One honest sentence, spoken without qualification. One simple step toward the thing you have been circling. When you keep a promise to yourself, you rebuild the inner trust that makes every other form of trustworthiness possible, because the foundation of a life that works is a self that trusts its own word. And the artifact of this completion matters, because it tells your whole system, clearly and gently, that the new reality is not a concept you admire, but a lived fact you inhabit. The artifact can be a written agreement you keep privately, a revised plan on your desk, a vow in your own words, a short paragraph of honest intention. Anything that carries the specific weight of something chosen and real. When you do this, one clean completion, one spoken truth, one small promise kept, you will notice something that the Ashtar command wants you to pay careful attention to. Space appears, and that space is not emptiness. It is possibility. It is the return of creative energy that was previously tied up in keeping ambiguity alive. It is the return of quiet that was previously spent rehearsing conversations that never happened. This is the gift of the Umbra Ledger delivered through the window of this eclipse. Completion as love, clarity as kindness, honesty as the most direct route to relief. Now, the Ashtar command wishes to address something that many of you carry as a hidden weight beneath the visible content of your days. A pattern that is especially common among souls of high sensitivity and long spiritual commitment. and which this eclipse window is specifically designed to illuminate. We name this pattern the enlarged story, and we have already introduced it as a column of the Umbra ledger, but it deserves a fuller transmission here because it operates at a subtlety that makes it difficult to recognize from the inside. The enlarged story is the narrative that forms around a real situation to protect a specific aspect of identity. Every human develops these narratives, and every human develops them for understandable reasons. Because identity is the structure through which a human being navigates the uncertainty of being alive, and any challenge to that structure feels, at the level of the nervous system, indistinguishable from genuine threat. But the cost of an enlarged story is considerable. It requires continuous maintenance. It prevents genuine contact with the people inside the narrative, and it draws energy from you at precisely the rate you need that energy for the work you came here to do. The eclipse contrast illuminates enlarged stories with a particular precision because the umbra removes the softening effect of ordinary ambient light and shows you the actual shape of things, not harshly, not as punishment, simply as information. The Ashtar command invites you, in the days surrounding this passage, to identify one story in your life that has become larger than its actual events warrant. You do not need to dismantle it dramatically. You simply need to allow it to return to actual size, to let the real event be what it was, without the additional architecture of meaning that was protecting something you no longer need protection from. When the story returns to its actual size, the relationship inside the story becomes accessible again. And what often happens is that what felt like an irresolvable conflict reveals itself as a simple misunderstanding that required two specific, honest sentences to dissolve. This is one of the most consistent patterns the Ashtar command observes in the lives of awakening humans. The problems that feel largest are often the ones sitting closest to a very small but very honest truth that has not yet been spoken. You have now received the first layer of what the Ashtar command is transmitting through this window, and we want to be precise about what comes next. The second layer does not build on the first abstractly. It builds on it operationally, meaning what we are about to describe only becomes available to you as a lived experience once you have enacted at least one completion from the Umbra ledger. The energy released by genuine completion is not a metaphor. It is a measurable shift in your available field resources, and that shift is the prerequisite for receiving what follows. If you are listening to this and you have already completed one thread, you will feel the second layer land with an immediacy that confirms you are ready. If you have not yet made a completion, we invite you to pause here and allow one to become real before continuing. We name this second movement the Meridian Choir, and we choose these words because they give your human mind a structure it can hold, while your deeper experience becomes practical. A meridian is a line of orientation, a way of locating yourself within a whole rather than feeling suspended in the undifferentiated space of infinite possibility. And a choir is many voices moving together without requiring identical notes, without requiring everyone to sing the same part, without requiring the absence of individuality in order to achieve harmony. A choir achieves its beauty precisely because each voice contributes its specific frequency to a shared song, and the shared song is greater than any single voice could produce, while each voice is more fully itself inside the song than it would be in isolation. The Meridian Choir is the Ashtar command's name for what this eclipse teaches about shared witnessing, about humility in perspective, and about the specific grace of remembering that you are one among many, and that this is not a diminishment of your importance, but an enlargement of the capacity of your heart. Some of you will watch the moon deepen and brighten again in real time. Some will notice it only through the feeling tone of the hours surrounding it. Some will move through the day with no visible encounter with the eclipse, and then, in an ordinary moment, 3 days later, a realization will arrive as though the eclipse traveled to you through an inner corridor rather than through a visible sky. The Meridian Choir reminds you, the sky is one, and the experiences are many, and love grows wiser when it can hold that without needing to correct each other's reality. The practical teaching of the Meridian Choir is this: allow yourself to gather, and then allow yourself to soften into quiet, not as a performance of spiritual practice, not as a ritual that must be executed correctly, simply as the natural two-phase movement of genuine assimilation. Gather for the witnessing, whether that means watching the eclipse, sharing a meal with someone you love, or checking in briefly with a friend to name what the week has been. And then allow yourself to move into a quieter space afterward, so the experience can settle from sensation into wisdom. This is not withdrawal from relationship. It is the completion of the relational cycle. The same way a choir rehearses together, and then each singer goes home and lets the music become part of their own body before the next rehearsal. If you learn this rhythm consistently, you will find your relationships become less complicated because you are not trying to process everything together simultaneously. You are allowing truth to arrive in layers, which is how human beings naturally assimilate experiences of real depth. The Meridian Choir also carries a specific teaching about place, about the relationship between your cosmic identity and the physical location you currently inhabit. Many souls drawn to this transmission carry a persistent feeling of being between worlds. We understand the tenderness of that, and we also tell you, your path on this planet becomes considerably more navigable when you allow the Earth herself to be part of your belonging. You do not need to force attachment. You simply need to restore relationship. Name 3 local witnesses and let them become part of your awareness. The nearest body of water, the nearest rise of land, the nearest path where human feet travel daily. When you do this, you are not performing a ritual. You are restoring orientation. You are telling your system that you are here, that here is real, and that here holds you. And that act of restoration is one of the most stabilizing forces available to a sensitive being, because it converts the present moment from a temporary transit point into a home you can actually inhabit. We move now into the third movement of this transmission, the layer that the Ashtar command considers most directly relevant to the specific quality of frustration that many awakening souls carry as a background frequency beneath the visible content of their spiritual lives. We name this movement the Saros Stare, and we choose that name because it points to something your soul has always understood, even when your mind has preferred a different explanation. Recurrence is not failure. Repetition is not evidence of being stuck. The return of a familiar theme to your life is not a sign that your growth has been ineffective or that your efforts have been wasted. The Saros Stare is the understanding that life moves forward through cycles, and that each cycle returns you to a familiar theme, not because you failed to resolve it previously, but because you are now at a higher level of capacity, meaning the same theme, encountered now, offers an upgrade that was not available the last time you faced it. A stair contains repetition, step after step, the same shape beneath your feet, and yet you are not in the same place you were. The view changes. The perspective widens. The heart becomes steadier, the mind becomes simpler, the hands become more skilled. This is what the Ashtar command wants you to feel in the actual tissue of your lived experience. Recurrence is training, and training becomes devotion when it is met with love rather than with the particular exhaustion of believing you should already be beyond it. The next section of this transmission contains specific operational tools for working with the Saros Stare. Tools that the Ashtar command has calibrated for the specific patterns most common among souls at the level of awakening reached by those drawn to this message. Hence, these tools do not require any special condition to work. They require only one thing, that you apply them to a real situation in your actual life, rather than evaluating them as concepts. A concept evaluated is entertainment. A concept applied is transformation. Receive what follows as instruction and choose before this transmission ends one real situation in which to apply it. Choose 3 themes that have returned more than once across the years of your life. Keep them simple and specific, around intimacy, around self-expression, around money, around health, around creative commitment, around honesty in relationships, around the pattern of giving more than you receive, around the habit of making yourself smaller than your actual capacity. Do not choose them to overwhelm yourself. Choose them the way you would choose 3 areas of genuine interest to explore this year. Then for each theme, identify 4 levels of response quality. Level 1 is recognition. You see the pattern early, before it has fully organized itself, without pretending you do not see it. Level 2 is response quality. You choose a response that is more loving than the one you chose the last time this theme appeared, even if the improvement is marginal. Level 3 is clean choice. You enact a decision that aligns with your actual values, rather than with the version of yourself that existed before the recognition. Level 4 is integration. You live the new choice consistently enough that it becomes the new default, the new automatic response, the new baseline from which future refinements will depart. When you work with themes in this way, recurrence stops being mysterious and starts being workable. You stop treating the return of a familiar challenge as a verdict on your character, and you start treating it as a staircase you are learning to climb with increasing elegance. The one-notch upgrade principle is the specific tool the Ashtar command recommends for immediate application. Choose one repeating habit and upgrade it by exactly 1 notch, not 10 notches, not a complete reinvention of your approach. 1 notch. If you tend to over-explain, practice 1 cleaner sentence. If you tend to delay your own creative projects, practice 1 small act of creation daily. If you tend to avoid the conversations that matter, practice 1 gentle truth spoken early before the weight of postponement accumulates. If you tend to give beyond your capacity, practice 1 respectful boundary that protects your time and your energy without apology. This one-notch approach is genuinely loving because it honors the actual pace of human embodiment. Real change does not happen through the dramatic gestures that feel significant in the moment, but cannot be sustained. Real change happens through small upgrades repeated until they become the new normal, and the new normal accumulated across months produces a transformation so complete that the people in your life notice it without being able to identify exactly what has changed. The Ashtar command also wishes to speak to the creative lives present in this transmission, because creation is one of the most direct means through which higher light enters human form. And creative cycles follow exactly the same stair pattern as every other cycle of growth. Inspiration rises and rests. Vision arrives in waves. The quality of creative output varies with the quality of the inner conditions in which it is produced. The Sero's stair invites you to treat your creative life as a curriculum rather than as a performance. To stop waiting for the perfect conditions that signal it is finally safe to create, and to start treating consistent small acts of creation as the actual devotion, the actual spiritual practice, the actual means by which your gifts move from potential into form. If you have been waiting for a perfect mood, let the one-notch upgrade be this. Create in an imperfect mood, briefly, without requiring the output to justify the effort. If you have been hiding your work until it reaches a standard of flawlessness that keeps receding ahead of you, let the one-notch upgrade be this. Share something small that is sincere, and let sincerity replace flawlessness as the standard. If you have been creating only when external pressure makes the alternative impossible, let the one-notch upgrade be this. Create from love, and let love be the fuel that replaces obligation. This is how you become both fully human and genuinely luminous at the same time. Not by transcending the ordinary conditions of your life, but by bringing a quality of devoted attention to those ordinary conditions that transforms them from the inside. We arrive now at the 4th and final movement of this transmission, and it is the one the Ashtar command considers most quietly powerful, because it addresses the specific internal experience that causes more unnecessary suffering in sensitive souls than almost any other pattern we observe across the field of your collective consciousness. We name this movement the lag law, and we choose that name because it gives your human self explicit permission to be kind to itself, while remaining fully committed to integrity, because it names the gap between understanding and embodiment as a feature of the system rather than a failure of the individual. The lag law is this: insight and embodiment do not land in the same moment, and that is not a problem. It is a rhythm. You will often feel the truth of something before you have lived it. You will often recognize the next step inwardly, clearly, specifically, without doubt, before your life has reorganized itself around that recognition. The interval between the recognition and the reorganization is not evidence of weakness. It is not evidence of resistance. It is the natural lag between consciousness and form, the time required for the choir to learn the note that the conductor has already heard. What the Ashtar command observes most consistently in sensitive beings is the tendency to respond to this interval with one of two forms of unkindness. Either you strain against it and try to force your life into alignment with your insight at a pace that exceeds what embodiment can sustain, or you use it as evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you and withdraw into the postponement that masquerades as patience, but is actually avoidance wearing patience's clothing. The lag law offers a third response. You allow yourself to recognize what is true. You make one clean, small move toward living it. And then you hold the interval between the recognition and the full reorganization with the same quality of patient confidence that a skilled farmer holds the interval between. Planting and harvest, not anxious, not inactive, but tending consistently to the conditions that support the outcome you have already committed to. The Ashtar command wishes to close this transmission by naming something directly that has been present in every movement of this message without being stated explicitly until now. The reason this eclipse window matters, the reason the Ashtar command has chosen to transmit through this passage with this specific level of operational detail, is not that the astronomical event is extraordinary in isolation. It is that the combination of astronomical configuration and the specific moment of your collective evolution creates a window of unusual tractability, a period in which the gap between your current reality and the reality your soul intends is narrower than it has been in recent memory, and in which the quality of choice you bring to the days surrounding March 3rd has an outsized effect on the trajectory of the months and years that follow. This is not a threat, and it is not a manipulation of urgency. It is a precise reading of your current energetic position. The souls drawn to this transmission are not here by chance. You carry specific activation codes, specific capacities for clarity, for compassion, for the kind of honest and gentle leadership that does not announce itself but simply demonstrates what is possible through the quality of one lived human life. And those codes are ready for the next level of expression, not in some abstract future state of enlightenment. In the specific choices you make this week, in the specific completions you allow this month, in the specific one-notch upgrades you commit to in the ordinary daily texture of a life that is becoming, steadily and irreversibly, more fully aligned with what you actually are. If this transmission has moved something real in you, if you feel the recognition frequency already beginning its organizing work in the structure of your current understanding, then subscribe to the Celestial Station now and activate the notification bell, so that the next transmission in this sequence finds you at precisely the moment it is most relevant to the passage you are navigating. Share this message with any soul in your field whose energy you sense is ready for operational clarity rather than comfortable reassurance. The Ashtar command holds every soul who received this transmission in the precise frequency of activated readiness that this window demands. The Umbra Ledger is open. The Meridian Choir is sounding. The Saros Stair is beneath your feet. The Lag Law is on your side. One clean completion, one spoken truth, one notch of upgrade, one patient step toward living what you already know. That is all this window requires of you, and that, done with love, is everything. We are Ashtar Command. The light has already won. Welcome home.